Welcome all my joyful creators and Longmire fans to Funday Monday, part 31, but part 1 of the border. That's right, we have completed the body of our blanket and we are starting the border today. Our colors for the border were chosen by Jen Reeves. And as you saw from the introduction, she chose number 4, which is carrot. And then Roseanne Alexander chose our second color, and that color is number 8, bright yellow. These two ladies have been with me the entire Longmire blanket, so it was kind of actually very fitting for them to pick the final 2 colors for the blanket. So let's go ahead and get started with the border. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to grab our number 4 color, which again on my chart was orange, and we're going to join it. So we're going to come right here in the very top corner. I am starting my border. You can start your border on any corner. It does not matter. But I'm starting mine on the very top left corner. All right, so let's go ahead and get our color joined on. And I'm just tightening everything down. And then we're going to chain 2. And to start our border, we are going to work single crochets all the way around each side of our blanket. Now, if you'll remember, our blanket is 200 rows long, and our blanket is, I have to go back and look at my notes. I always forget if it's 156 or 158. It is 158 stitches wide. So that's how many single crochets you need to put on the long sides, 200, and 158 on the short sides. Okay, so the length is 200 stitches and the width is 158. So let's go ahead and get started, and then I'm going to show you something because I know some of you had some issues due to tension, due to stitches, where some of your stitches seem to draw your blanket inward. And I'm going to tell you how to fix those on this first round of the border. All right, so to get started, now we've chained 2, so that counts right there as our first single crochet and our turning chain. Okay, so since this is a corner, okay, that's going to count as 1 single crochet. We're going to go back into that same stitch and we're going to add 2 more single crochets right into that same stitch. So now we have a total of 3 single crochets, oops, sorry, off camera, in that stitch. All right, so then we're going to find our next row and we're going to go right into that end stitch and we're going to work a single crochet. All right, and then we're going to go, oops, bear with me just a second. Okay, this would be my next stitch. And we're going to work a single crochet in it. And then into the next stitch, we'll work a single crochet. And then just following along the rows, that next stitch will be a single crochet. So, as I said, get it completely under both those loops. There we go. We're going to continue working single crochets all the way down this side and around. Now, if you get to a section, and I'm just going to keep working as we're talking, and I'm trying to make sure, yeah, I think I'm still on camera. I want to make sure I'm still on camera. I'm actually going to pause a minute and adjust the camera so I can keep working with you. This blanket is so big, it's hard to get it accurately up under the camera. But let me readjust it and I'll be right back. So I'm going to continue working along this side of the blanket with you. Until we get down to a section where we might have to do some improvising so I can show you. But in the meantime, I'm going to talk about it a little bit until we get there. So let's say you have a side that has kind of caved in a little bit so that it makes it look like your blanket is not the same width. The only place that happened for me was when we did kind of like the chevron strips or the chevron rows. I'm trying to make sure I get this in the stitch. There we go. I was wanting to go into the space and I want the actual stitch because I want to have it right on the edge of the blanket. So let's see here. We've got 1, 2 stitches. So, or 2 rows is what I meant. So we're going to create 2 stitches. So there's 1, and that's not the correct space, or the correct stitch. It needs to go in here. And it's not wanting to go in there. So I'm just going to wiggle it. There we go. Whoops. Well, that was just giving me a time. See how easy it is? It wants to pick up the space. But you want to, as best as you can, to try and get into the stitch itself. There we go. And now we're moving, and that would be two rows into that stitch. So, okay. So what do we do when we get to that section where it's a little wonky and uneven? Well, you're going to master your stitches for whatever, okay, see that's a space again. We want to make sure we're going into the stitch. There we go. For the length that you need. So in other words, if the space is, you know, a little different, a little shorter, but not by much, then instead of doing the single crochet, you might do the half double crochet. And if it needs a little bit more length than the half double crochet, then you can do the double crochet or the triple crochet. You're going to have to kind of judge what it's going to take to create this border. And really what we're doing with this first row is we're setting up the foundation. Now I'm getting ready to come through, you know, the length of the white where we did all of our dream catcher. And then once we get through that, that's where I'm going to run into parts of my blanket. Right here you can see where it came out a little on the uneven side. And I know for a fact that on the opposite side of this blanket, of these rows, it really pulled in a lot more than it did on this side. And then I have a section, I'll see if I can bring the blanket down and show you. Right here, when we did the triangles, and if you'll see, it looks like it kind of came out a little bit further. So how will I fix that? Well, because I want my border to be even as I'm coming along, okay, when I get to that section, then I might come in just a little bit and try and grab maybe 2 stitches so that I can try and help fix that up, okay? And I may increase the tension on those stitches so that it kind of forces the blanket to draw in like so. So it's got that flatter edge. But we'll work on that as we go. So I'm going to spend a good bit of time with you on this first round of the border as we get our blanket even, because you want it to be even. So as we continue, I am just working single crochets around here. And so here's the beginning of each of my rows. So I'm going to work right in to the top of those rows. So this little section should be fairly easy when it comes to adding these single crochets in. And as you go and you do just a little section, I would just for, you know, measure, I would just hold it up and I would make sure that I'm fairly comfortable with that border, you know, that it is truly straight for me. Now I did have a little bit of a dip right there, but I think that when I add the weight of the next row, that's going to be fine, okay? You just want it like, and if you have to, give a little bit of attention, and I'm saying tension as in, you know, Tension, to it, and if it kind of evens out, see how that evened out? Then I know that the tension from the next round is going to keep that straight for me. All right, so then I come and look at the rest of this, and right there, might be because it's a little bit looser stitch, but other than that, it is straight. So we are good to go so far. So we're going to keep coming across these white stitches. Somewhere, somehow, looks like I dropped a stitch there. So when I come in, I need to come in there, and that'll keep my border even. All right, next row. Okay. And I've done quite a few, so in just a few more stitches I'm going to stop and make sure my border still appears to be straight, so I don't have to frog too much if it's not. And I'm kind of on a roll, but I do need to make myself stop. So we'll do it with this one right here. All right. All right, hold that out. That is looking fairly straight. I see a dip kind of there. So I'm just going to kind of pull on it and give it a little tension and see. And to me, that straightened it out. So that tells me with the next row on there, it's gonna give it more of that straight look. So that little dip is fine. So let's move along. And we'll go ahead and finish out this white section here. And when I get to the end of this white section, I will need to pause the video for just a minute and slide my blanket down. So we will pause for just a brief moment. And we're almost to the very end of the white section. And we have one more. All right, so let's measure that. And again, looking when I lay my hook down, that is looking pretty straight. There might be some edges that look like they're sticking out even a little bit. But again, I think when you have the tension of that next row, yes, it's going to even itself out. So we're doing pretty good. So far we've had to do nothing but single crochet stitches, but I think in this next section is where we're going to have to do a little bit of adjusting or manipulating. But let me get the blanket slid down and I will be right back with you. So now with this positioned differently, you can see what I'm talking about, how this particular stitch caused the blanket to draw in. And this is the section that many of you struggled with because of the fact that it did this, and I told you not to worry about it. So this is where we're going to kind of manipulate a little bit, because these stitches right here were a completely different stitch from here, and then these stitches were different even from these, and so it gave us this kind of concave. So let's fix this. Let me find my crochet hook and get it back on here. So I feel like this first stitch right in here is still fairly straight and across. Okay, it's right in here that it's starting to dip, and then obviously here it's the worst, because we're going to need it to kind of come across here. We use this thread, and that might be a great idea for you. Let me, in fact, I was looking for something here. Let me use this book. Okay, so we have this book, and we have to fill in these spaces, and that's fine. In this center part, we will probably do a triple crochet, and on the ends here, we'll use, you know, double and half. All right, so I'm going to slide the book back just a minute. So coming into this very first stitch here, and I'm trying to remember how many rows. We did 2 rows of each of those, so I've got to do 2 stitches. So here's my first single crochet, and I know I'm almost off the camera, but I'm trying to stay on enough that you can see. All right, let me bring this camera down a little bit, and that might help a little bit more. All right, and then we're going to go right into the next one and do a single crochet. But because now it's starting to dip a little bit, we're going to go ahead and work a half double crochet into this purple strip here. And then we're going to work a half double crochet into the next stitch. And if you'll notice, look how it's straight again. Okay. All right. Let's pull our book back to use as a guide. Now I do feel like this is a deeper stitch, so we're going to go ahead and go right into a double crochet into this one here, and a double crochet into this one. And again, now you can see how it's evening that row out. Okay, and I know the way my blanket's laying to hold it on here, it makes it look like it's caving over here, but it's not. We've got our straight row here. All right, so I'm going to pull this out a minute and use my book as my guide. Okay. So these are definitely my deeper stitches. So for this red, this teal, this minty, and probably just those 3 colors, we're going to work our triple crochets. So let me back that up. And let's go ahead into this first one, and let's work a triple crochet. And just in case you're not sure how to do that, let me do it again so I can show you. Yarn over twice, insert your hook into the stitch, yarn over and draw up a loop. You have 4 loops on the hook. Yarn over and draw through the first 2, yarn over and draw through the next 2, and yarn over and draw through the last 2. And that's a triple crochet. All right, and we're going to do that again. And we're going to do that for the next 4 stitches. Oops, it's got to go here. And you just have to determine on your blanket what your stitches need to be, because your tension may be different from mine. So you may not have to do triple crochets at all on yours. You may have to do more triple crochets than I've had to do. It just all depends on your tension. And so see, now when I hold that out, you're looking at this edge right here. See how that made it straight again? Yes, my stitches are thicker here, okay? But it gave me that straight edge that I needed. And all this did was fill in that gap. But I still have that definitive straight border there. Okay, so to come back out of it, I'm going to work a couple double crochets right here. And then, just so I can check it, because I kind of feel like maybe I can start doing some half double crochets and about here pick up my single crochets again. But let's just take a look. All right. If that is my edge, you have to remember I'm having to hold my blanket different than you for the camera, so let me get this accurate. All right, I don't know if you can see that. Let me get this strand of yarn out the way. All right, so yes, you can. So right there, I have a little bit, there we go. I have a little bit of room that I need to cut, cover in, that the single crochets would not do. So I'm going to do half double crochets coming out of this. I don't think it's deep enough on my blanket for me to continue with the double crochets. So I'm going to do a half double crochet. And again, you're just going to have to determine from your blanket the gap. You can get a ruler, you can get whatever, a piece of yarn, whatever you need to do in order to use it as a guide on what you need to do for filling it in, okay? All right, I am in love with that. I definitely see a straighter border there. Now, I know this kind of looks wavy, and it is. I mean, those were waves that we created, chevrons, okay? So it's going to create that a little bit. All right, and then I'm looking right here. I see where there's kind of a little bit of a dip, but remember when we pulled it out, and I'll show you like there again. Okay, so giving it just a little bit of tension, it straightens out to that straight edge that we need. So I know that when I add that second row, it's going to keep it straight for me. And that's why I said just take your time. Always take your time, But look at that. See how we have that straight edge? And that's what we want. All right. So coming out of here, I think this very next one needs to be one more half double crochet. And then after that, we are ready to go back to single crochet. I just got to figure out where my stitch is right there to go into. All right. And then we're just going to continue. And I'm just going to work with you a little bit longer as we go down towards that next little section where we did the triangles. And I told you mine stuck out just a little bit. So I can show you how to work that side of the border or that section of the border to straighten it back out when it's going out, too far out instead of too far in. Okay. I might need to stop and slide the blanket down. Let's see, I was able to slide it. Excuse me. So let's just keep working. And again, you always want to make sure you go under both loops. I think I got a space. kind of hard to see around the camera. So you have to bear with me sometimes. My yarn's wanting to roll and put it in a space. I only have one loop there. There we go. Okay. This is a different stitch, so you just have to kind of find your rows. A little bit of my hair in there. All right. Let's see if I can slide it a little bit more. And I can. And let's just stop and make sure that we're staying straight. And again, this is where, you know, we had to manipulate those stitches, but when you give it the tension that it needs, that the next row is going to give it, it's going to be fine. You can see how that's created it and made it a lot straighter. And then the tension from that next row is going to help keep it straight. But always keep checking, because you may have to go back and you may have to do something more than the single crochet. But for me so far, that was the only section that I had to do something different with, until we get down to these triangles, and we're getting very, very close. They're right here. And sometimes if you have to, pull your work apart so you can find that row, so you know where to place your hook. Okay. We have one more stitch, and we do, before we get to that section. Okay, so I'm going to pause a minute and adjust my camera and my blanket so that you can see this next section very well. So let's go ahead and find where we're sticking the next stitch, and it's right here. We're going to work our single crochet. All right. And then our next single crochet. And then it looks like we've got one more that we can do. All right. So it looks like my blanket really doesn't start to stick out until about here with this stitch here. So let's go ahead and work a couple more single crochets as we normally would. And then right here is where the blanket is starting to stick out. So if I kind of squish it in to bring it to the height that I want it to be, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come right here into this stitch and make my single crochet. And then on this row, I'm going to come into the second one to do my single crochet. And then I want to make sure I pull it really tight. My tension's really, really tight. So see how it straightened that out, where before you saw it sticking out. We're going to do that same thing here with this one and come into the second one. Oops, I've got it set up to do a half double crochet. We don't want to do that. Come back into the second one here. And again, we're going to pull it really tight and see how it's given us more of a straighter edge there. And then it looks like it goes back into being even again, you know, when you pull it. So we're just going to go back into doing single crochets on the edge again instead of going up 2. All right, we got, these were triple crochets that we did here, okay? So we're going to find somewhere in the middle section of the stitch. And actually, since that's kind of thin on the end there, I'm actually going to do the single crochet in the space to help support that. And then we'll come here in the base of it, and we'll do the same thing. Go into the space, and then come into the bottom of the base. And see how that's helped a lot. Now this is still sticking out a little bit, but again, when it gets the tension from the second row, it's going to straighten that. Okay. All right. And then we're just going to keep working our single crochets all the way down. And I am off camera. So let me see if I can slide my blanket down. And anytime it's loose, like this is, to me, it's more the texture of the yarn. Let me pull that stitch out. This is more the texture of this yarn. This yarn here that I use for this section, it is a medium weight 4, but it's a lot softer, looser yarn. So therefore, I feel like it needs a little bit more support. So instead of doing it in the stitches, I'm going to do it in the space to give the stitch a little bit more strength. Now this is where we did that kind of corded stitch. So I'm going to have to turn it towards the front here. Remember, this is kind of that 3D stitch, and do my single crochet behind it. And I'm doing it in the space to give it a little bit more support. And then I'm just going to continue going down the side. I think I only got one loop there. Want to definitely there we go. Make sure I'm getting both loops. And same thing here, because of this stitch, it's got kind of a bigger hole here. I'm going to go into that space to help give it more support. You should not have any difficulty doing your single crochet stitches along the top and the bottom of your blanket. It's probably only on the sides that you have to do any kind of manipulation or an adjustment. Trying to get into the stitch versus the space, and I have to kind of wiggle it in on that one. So again, here I have a big space. So rather than trying to go into the center of it, I'm just going to go into the space to create my stitch. And then find the base of it and go into that for the next one. And I'm starting to get off camera, sorry. But these are going to be fairly easy the rest of the way down, and like I said, across the top and bottom. So here we go again. Got kind of a bigger space, so we'll just go into the space for that one to help give it support, but then find the base and go into the actual stitch. And just don't forget to stop and make sure you're kind of keeping that straight edge. And anytime you see anything, just see if you give it a slight pull. That's all you need to see if it's going to hold with the tension and continue to be straight. Now I know it's kind of hard to see mine because it's curving up over the other part of the blanket we finished, but I'm trying to keep it on camera as best I can. It's a big blanket and a little camera. All right, so here we come again into a space, but find that base like that and go right into it. All right, and we are almost to the end of this side of the blanket. Again, if you have to do what I just did and pull the rows apart so you can find that stitch, then do it. It is raining outside, so you might be hearing that a little bit in the background. So if you hear this weird little kind of paling sound, that's what it is the rain. Because my camera does tend to pick up sound very easily. This black is kind of hard, so got to make sure I'm separating those rows and finding where I need to be. All right, so that's a triple crochet there again. So we're going to just go into that space and do a single crochet, find the base of it right there, and go into the stitch again. And then we're getting down to the end. And actually I'm going to back out because that last stitch is going to go right here into the base, I think. Yep. All right. So that completes the side. All right, so we've already put one stitch into this corner stitch, and we're going to put 2 more single crochets right into that same stitch, so that we've got a total of 3 single crochets in each of our corner stitches. And then you're going to turn, and you're just going to easily walk right through this one, this side, with your single crochet stitches. I can't really turn my blanket without having to stop the camera, so I'm going to kind of do what I can just so you can see how simple and easy it is to go through those stitches and make your single crochet stitches to create that soft border edge that you want. See? I love that. That is beautiful. All right, so keep working around the body of your blanket until you get all the way back to where you started. Let's see if I can get my blanket pulled back enough to look. It's kind of rolled up to help me keep it on the table. So, all right. So here's where we started. So I'll meet you when we get back here. Of course, you're going to slip stitch into this first stitch, but do not fasten off. We're going to go around again using the same color, but we're going to do a different technique. So when you get back to the beginning here, just slip stitch into this first single crochet, and I will meet back up with you. So we've completed the first round of our border, and I want to encourage you, before you go any further, to lay your blanket on a flat surface and just make sure that the areas that you had to do a little bit of adaptation to, whether it was increasing it from a single crochet to a half double to a double crochet, triple crochet, that you got everything and that your blanket is now in that complete rectangle form, and that you are satisfied with your edges and that they're all, even enough that you will be able to continue on with round 2. So I really, really encourage you to do that, because there's nothing more frustrating to go a little bit further on and then have to frog that border out. So this is the perfect time to just take a few minutes and make sure. I would rather have to frog back a little bit of round one than to do several rounds to make my blanket look right. So just take that few minutes to lay your blanket out flat and make sure that you have found all the edges that needed a little bit of adaptation to them. Okay, now if you're ready to go on to round two of the border, then let's go ahead and get started. So as I told you before we stopped the video a few minutes ago, make sure that you slip stitch your last stitch into the first stitch of that 3 single crochets that we had in the corner. Go ahead and chain 3, and then right in that same stitch you're going to work 2 double crochets. The chain 3 will count as your first double crochet and our turning chain, so to speak, to give us our row height. All right, so there's our 3 double crochets in that corner. Now on this next stitch we're going to skip it and we're going to work a double crochet into the next stitch. Then you're going to yarn over that stitch that you missed. You're going to come back across and go into that stitch and work your double crochet. And when you do that, it's going to give that stitch an X shape. And we're going to do that again. So skip the next stitch and then into the next one, work a double crochet. Yarn over, go back over to that stitch that you skipped and work a double crochet in it. And again, it's going to give you kind of a little bit of a X look. All right. And we're going to do it again. Skip one, and the next one work a double crochet. Yarn over, go back to the one you skipped, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, and complete it with a double crochet. And again, it's giving you that little bit of an X look. And we're just going to keep doing that. We're going to skip one, go into the next one, work a double crochet, yarn over, go back to the one we missed, skipped, and work a double crochet. And we're just going to keep doing that all the way down the row. Or side, I guess I should say. And then when you get to that next corner stitch, you're going to work 3 double crochets into it. There's your X. So it's creating these X's. And so as I was saying, in each corner stitch, you're going to work 3 double crochets. Outside of those corner stitches, you're going to continue with the skipping a stitch, working a double crochet into the next stitch, and then going back to the one that you skipped and working a double crochet in it to create this X effect. And so skip this next stitch, go into the next one, work a double crochet, come back over to the one we missed, and work a double crochet. And that's going to continue to create X's. And like I said, you're going to keep doing that all the way down until you get to the next corner. You'll work 3 double crochets into that corner stitch, and then you'll start your X's again. And you'll continue doing that all the way around until you get back here at the beginning, and then you'll just slip stitch in the top of this chain 3, and I will meet back with you there. Do not fasten off, because we're going to complete one more round with this color. So I will meet with you here to show you how to begin round 3. We've made it back around to the corner, so we are just going to go into the top of that chain 3, and we're going to join it with a slip stitch, and that completes the second round of the border. Now we're going to chain 1, and that chain 1 is going to count as a single crochet, and we're going to chain 1 more time to be our turning chain, and we're going to come right here into the top of this middle double crochet that we have in that corner, and we're going to work 3 single crochets. So 1, 2, and 3. And that gives us the start of that corner. And then we're going to come into the next stitch and work a single crochet, and then we are going to work single crochets all the way around the border. So I want you to go ahead and pause the video and work single crochets all the way around. When you get back to here, you're going to slip stitch in the top of this single crochet. You're going to go ahead and fasten off, and then you're going to go ahead and join your number 8 color, which for me is yellow. And then I need you to go ahead and chain 2, and I will meet back up with you there. So we have completed that last and third round of the orange, and this is what we have. This is what it looks like. I've gone ahead and attached the new color and chain 2. This is where we agreed to meet back up, and this chain 2, I put it and joined my color in the corner stitch of the 3 single crochets that completed the corner from the last round. And then I'm going to let that chain 2 count as the first single crochet in the turning chain, and I'm going to put 2 additional single crochets into this same stitch. And then I'm going to work around my blanket, putting a single crochet stitch in each stitch around until I get to the corner, and in the very corner I'm going to put 3 single crochets so it creates a new rounded corner for me. And I'm just going to keep working all the way around the blanket until I come back to the beginning, and then I'm going to join with a slip stitch and chain 2, and then go right into that corner stitch and do 3 single crochets, and then continue working around. And we're going to do that for a total of 7 rounds. So go ahead and work your 7 rounds, working a single crochet stitch into each stitch around and 3 single crochets in each corner, and I will meet you at the end of your 7th round. Here we are. We have finished the border to our Longmire blanket, and we are not quite done with the border. We have 2 more episodes that will complete our Longmire blanket. This has been Funday Monday, part 31 of the Longmire blanket. Oh my gosh, it's so surreal that we are almost over with Longmire. It has been quite an amazing and fun journey, but I am ready and excited for our new journey with Call the Midwife. I look forward to seeing you next week, and until then, you know it. Stay safe, be joyful, stay crafty in your own way, and make your own joyful creations. See you again soon.